It was an old Victorian house with peeling paint and overgrown ivy. Locals called it Whispering Pines because of how the wind sounded when it blew through the pine trees surrounding the home. It was also known as the home where no one ever stayed. For decades, people had tried to live there, but within days or weeks, they all left town, never to return. The only exception was the new owners, a young married couple who seemed determined to make a go of it. The house had been built by lumber baron Elias Witherby in 1892. Heedy lived there with his wife and 3 children until he died in 1911. His widow and her children survived the sinking of the Titanic and returned to live in the house, though they eventually sold it off. Throughout the years, stories accumulated around the house of unexplained phenomena, moving objects, shaking beds, even interacting with people. One former owner claimed that he could hear whispers in the dead of night, like voices from beyond the grave. After the home sat empty for several years, John and Abigail Blackwood purchased it at a sheriff's auction for back taxes. They were young and in love, newlyweds, looking to start their family. Neither of them cared that the home was supposedly haunted. They just saw a fixer-upper that needed a lot of work and a place they could call home. The first few weeks went without incident, except for some strange occurrences that they put down to settling in. There were times when John would be downstairs reading while Abigail was upstairs unpacking boxes, and she would hear him talking out loud. Then there were other times when they both heard footsteps on the stairs or doors opening and closing on their own. But most of these incidents occurred at night, and both John and Abigail were sound sleepers, so it wasn't a big deal. One day, Abigail was going through boxes in the attic when she came across a small trunk in the corner. She brought the trunk downstairs, propped it open, and began looking through it. Most of the things inside were worthless old clothes, but she did find a diary. Written in faded ink, the leather-bound book contained the life story of Eliza Witherby. According to the diary, Eliza had been born in the house in 1894 and had lived there all of her life until her father died. When she was 17, her mother and brother perished aboard the Titanic, leaving Eliza and her sister Eleanor to fend for themselves. Though her father had been rich, he'd left very little money for his daughters, and by the time Eliza was 21, she and her sister were forced to sell the family home and move into town. Over the next few years, Eliza found work as a waitress and saved enough money to enroll in nursing school. After graduating, she worked at the local hospital until she met and married a soldier named Thomas Blackwood. They bought a small home outside of town and had 2 sons before Thomas was killed in action during World War II. Stricken with grief, Eliza returned to her old home where she died in 1963. As Abigail read through the diary, she felt as if she were getting to know Eliza, her hopes and dreams, her fears and sadness. She could practically feel her presence in the room with her. Then Abigail came across the last entry dated January 1963. It read, "My health is failing. I don't think I have much time left. If anyone is still living in this house when I die, I hope they can forgive me." Finishing the diary entry sent a chill down Abigail's spine. She closed the book, placed it back in the trunk, and went out to the shed to get some stuff out of the attic. When she came back inside, she noticed that the trunk was open and the diary was gone. Confused, she searched the house but couldn't find it anywhere. Had she misplaced it? Did she leave it in the car? A few days later, Abigail was up in the attic searching for some Christmas decorations when she came across the trunk again. It was sitting in the same spot where she'd found it. Excited, she opened it, pulled out the diary, and began reading it again, this time paying closer attention to the dates. Sure enough, there was another entry dated the day after her first, which read, "Today my body gave out but my spirit remains. This house has been my home for so long. It's where I feel most at peace. I hope those who live here can feel my love for them." With each passing day, more strange things happened in the house. Objects moved from one room to another. Lights flickered and turned on by themselves. Sometimes Abigail could smell lilacs wafting up the stairs, or hear the faint sound of a woman humming to herself. At first, John thought it was all in Abigail's head. Maybe the stress of moving into an old house had gotten to her. Then one day, while he was working in the basement, he heard footsteps on the stairs. Startled, he stopped what he was doing and listened. The steps came again, slowly and deliberately coming down the stairs. Then he heard a rocking chair moving back and forth. Not knowing what to do, John grabbed a baseball bat and went to investigate. But when he got to the top of the stairs, he saw nothing. The rocking chair was still. The room was empty. That's when John knew that something else was in the house with them. He went to find Abigail, told her what he'd experienced, and asked if she wanted to sell the house. To his surprise, she said no. She didn't care how many ghosts they had living with them. She wasn't leaving. That night, Abigail couldn't sleep. She kept tossing and turning in bed, listening to every creak and groan of the old house. Finally, she got up, walked to the window, and looked out into the darkness. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow over the yard. That's when she heard the voice. "Are you awake?" It whispered, barely audible. Startled, Abigail spun around. "Who's there?" she cried out, her voice echoing through the room. "Up here," the voice replied, and then it was gone. Slowly, Abigail got out of bed and went to the closet. She opened the door and turned on the light. There was nothing in the closet but coats and hats. Next, she checked under the bed and behind the dresser, but there was nothing there either. Just as she was about to give up, she heard the voice again. "Come with me," it whispered. Hesitantly, Abigail reached out and touched the doorknob. As she opened the door, she felt a cold breeze on her neck. Then she stepped out and closed the door behind her. The hallway was dark, but the rocking chair was in front of her, moving back and forth slowly. As she approached it, the rocking became faster and more violent. Suddenly, the chair lurched forward and Abigail stumbled back, tripping over her own feet. Then, everything went black. When Abigail woke up, she was lying on the floor in front of the fireplace. Disoriented, she sat up and looked around. John was kneeling beside her, his face pale with worry. "What happened?" she asked. "You passed out," John replied. "I heard you scream and ran up the stairs. Are you okay?" Abigail nodded, though she was still shaken by what had just happened. She stood up and walked over to the rocking chair. It was silent now, as if nothing had happened. That's when she realized that the diary was missing from her pocket. She searched the room but couldn't find it anywhere. Just as she was about to give up, she saw something behind the curtains. Pulling them aside, she found the diary on the windowsill. Opening it, she began reading, and sure enough, there was another entry dated February, the day of her near-fainting spell. It read, "Last night I called to you. I'm sorry if I frightened you. All I wanted was company. I've been so lonely for so long." From that day on, Abigail and John were never alone in the house. They heard footsteps on the stairs, saw objects move, and felt the presence of someone else in the room with them, but they weren't scared anymore. They accepted that the ghost was living with them, and sometimes at night when they were lying in bed, Abigail would whisper back to the ghost, "We're not afraid of you. You're our friend now." The end. Thanks for listening. Do you believe in ghosts? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked this story, check out more content for more scary stories.